Now, guys, for episode 2 for the Ministry of Finance, I had mentioned that we are going to look at sustainable and technical ways to create our national budget. But before that, permit me to debrief the processes that are deployed in creating the national budget so that you can appreciate my recommendation. Because most of you don't know how this national budget is created. Now, mind you, there is a constitutional mandate under Article 179 and the PFM Act 2016, which is the Public Finance Management Act 2016. That says that the national budget should be created in a structured 4-stage cycle. So there is cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3, and cycle 4. So I will take you through all this cycle. Then probably in the next video, I would tell you what the directive would be or what I will be discussing in the next video, depending on how I conclude this video. So now let's look at the first cycle. The first cycle is the formulation of the budget, which is the planning phase. And under the first cycle, there was the phase 1. The phase 1 is seeking public input, simply seeking public input. So Ministry of Finance would issue out an invitation in newspapers in the first quarter of the fiscal year. So which is January, February, March. He would issue out this invitation in newsletters through media houses, gathering the budget memorandum from citizens and civil society organizations. Now, what do I mean by budget memorandum? What I mean by budget memorandum is a proposal. It's a legal and a financial proposal that you are writing formally to the Ministry of Finance, telling them that me area ne mono bridge way ebu. Inti mimi hune say 700,000 Ghana cedis betumi aye bridge way. So involve it in your budget. Have you ever write any of this budget? Any of this proposal before? No. So you hear them say that they are doing stakeholders consultation meeting in Accra. It is actually a bunch of rich men, rich businessmen, think tanks, civil society. Meanwhile, the major person or the local farmer in Diaboso who is farming and is feeling the impact on the ground is sidelined. Do you know the gap? The gap is that the ordinary Ghanaian cannot draft this proposal because it is expected to follow some legal and financial orientation. You see where the problem is. Then the phase 2 is then we move past this to phase 2, which is certain macroeconomic targets. Now we have moved past the individual phase, we are moving to the national phase. What are we doing at the macroeconomic target? How are we setting it? At this stage, what you are doing is you are forecasting and predicting. We are forecasting and predicting state revenue. How are we going to set fiscal limits? Fiscal limit is one of the areas this government has been exceptionally great about. It's going to say it means that no matter the amount of project we want to implement, no matter the amount of contract we want to undertake, we cannot spend past this threshold. So there was a particular threshold they wouldn't spend past. They would look at all this thing during this microeconomic target. At this stage, they're also looking at ways that they can draft the national budget so that inflation is low, so that job is created. They are looking at ways to draw the national budget so that it follow a particular financial framework that supports the country not just for a year, but for a long term, in the next 5 to 10 years. Then after this stage, the Ministry of Finance will then move to issue out the budget circular. So we would issue out this budget circular stating the exact expenditure ceiling or the exact expenditure cap to all the MDAs. So the MDAs is what? Ministries, departments, and agencies. So ministries like the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, department is the Ghana Health Service, Ghana Education Service. I'm giving you examples. So he would write to them stating the exact ceiling cap. Then he's going to tell them, say, we are not spending past this limit. Then still under the first cycle, the last stage under the first cycle is he would then conduct a budget hearing. At this budget hearing, he's welcoming you who have written a proposal to him to come and tell him why you think it is this. He will do review, come and review with him. At this same stage, he's going to adjust the budget. At the same stage, he's going to defend the budget with individual ministries and individual MDAs. So that is the final. Then we move to the next cycle. The next cycle is the legislative and enactment phase. Legislative review and enactment phase, which is the approval phase. And when I'll be say, yes, Minister of Finance, wash a white or kind budget. That is all we see. The anthem says that we are all involved in building the motherland, but we are not actually all involved because we are all not informed. So we bypass a whole cycle before you see The Minister of Finance is reading the budget in front of the House on behalf of the President. So we go to the legislative stage. He reads the budget in front of the House. Then, mind you, there is a deadline. Under constitutional mandate or under constitutional law, it says that the document would be laid before Parliament at least 1 month before the fiscal year ends. So typically that is around November, because the fiscal year starts in January 1st and it ends in December 31st. So 1 year before the fiscal year ends, that would be typically around November. So he submits it around that time. Then instead of the entire 275 parliamentarian scrutinizing and reviewing the entire thousands of pages of national budget, they don't do that. They segregate these parliamentarians into committees. So committee for education, into the education, national education budget, national health, agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture budget. Then when they go and review the budget, they will be asked questions. Why are you charging taxes on fuel and internet? This tax is harsh. We wouldn't stand for this tax. This project is wasteful. Then they will debate on these things. Then they will vote on these issues on the floor. Then after debating on, delineating on all this, then somewhere in December, they will pass what is called the appropriation bill. Look at the name, appropriation bill. The appropriation bills means that it is a bill that is going to legitimate the president, or is going to allow the president to legally spend. So without the appropriation bill, the president cannot dip his hands into the nation coffers or the national bank and take money for national or critical governmental projects. It is illegal. So you pass the appropriation bill, which is going to tell you where every single city is going to go. Then after that, the budget is set for the next cycle, which is the execution and disbursement. Execution, entertainment, and nijaba. That is where they find their cuckoo season. So under this stage, before the money is disbursed, the Ministry of Finance would first rule out what I call the budget implementation instructions. He would rule out all these things to the various ministries, give them instruction of how to spend the money. Then he would liaise with the Controller and Accountant General Department, and they would disburse this money. They would disburse this money to everyone. And then, yes, we move to the next. And the final cycle is oversight and accountability. Somewhere during mid-year, before 30th of July, he's going to come back to Parliament because there might be some budgetary shift or some contingencies they didn't see at the early stages. He'll come and seek supplementary budget, says, can hear more. You come, then all this public accounts office and all these things, auditor general would also do all his analysis and his mathematics, but because he's weak, he doesn't have any prosecutorial power, he's useless. And that is the oversight stage. So now that I've been able to delineate on all the processes for you, now when I give my recommendation and I give the strategic measures that we must implement, you would appreciate it more. You see, but before that, there is a need to know how to draft your proposal. So in the next video, I'll show you step by step how to draft this proposal so that in the first quarter, January, February, March, where you submit it, who you should submit it to, who to copy in the proposal, and how to follow up on this proposal. So I'll do that. Then in the next third video, which will be the 4th episode, we will then look at the sustainable and strategic ways that if implemented, the national budget will serve the collective purpose. Thank you. #YPGG, #Youth for Proper Governance Ghana, #Hope in Action. If today is your first time here, click the follow button, like, leave a comment, repost, and share with other social reformers. Thank you.